My name is Simcha Perlmutter, and as you can probably see by looking at me, I am an Orthodox Jew. I live in Israel, and I have lived in Israel and in the middle of the desert in Israel for nearly 30 years. And for a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi, to live in the middle of Israel, in the middle of the desert of Israel, for 30 years, one must be either a little bit crazy or having been perhaps called by God. Now, I don't know. I may be in urgent need of a psychiatrist, or it may be that I've been called by Hashem, by God, or it may be a little of both. In any case, a question arises, and I suppose you're entitled to an answer. What am I doing here? And that question, of course, has come to me before it came to you. What am I doing here? Sometimes I even look in the mirror after 30 years. I wake up in the morning and I say, what am I doing here? I've spent the best part of my days here. I came as a young man, and I probably will be going out as an old man here in the desert. What have I accomplished? What have I done? What have I intended to do? Is it just a useless life, a recluse life, the life of a hermit, alone in the desert? Or is it something that I've been called upon by God to do? And another question even before that, who is this mad rabbi in the middle of the desert of Israel? Who is this rabbi who's speaking to us now? Well, I'll try to give you some answers to those questions. The answers are long. I can't give you 30 years in just a few minutes. But I can tell you, if I have to sum up my life, that's a difficult thing for me to do. If I have to sum up my life, I can do it by telling you that there must be, prophetically it's written, there must be a voice which cries in the wilderness. In Hebrew we call that kol shekoreh b'midbar, a voice which cries out in the wilderness. What does the voice say? Why is the voice there? The voice is to say, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. Comfort yourselves. Comfort yourselves, my people. How? Comfort ourselves with what? You see, I represent the people as every Jew does, but uniquely here in the land of Israel, and uniquely here in the desert of the land of Israel, and uniquely being an Orthodox Jew, and a rabbi yet. That voice which cries out in the desert, comfort you, my people, must be a voice that can comfort 2,000 years of wandering and persecution and death and destruction. And principally, that has come about in what we know, in what we call, in Jewish terminology, the Roman exile, the exile of the kingdom of Rome. In Jewish history, we are aware of 3 exiles. The first one being the exile to Egypt, from which we were taken out by God in the great Exodus and brought into our land. We were slaves, and from slaves we became free men, and from free men we became princes, sons of the living God, as he says in Shmois in Exodus, as he says in Exodus chapter 4, verse 22, B'ni b'chori Yisrael, my son, my firstborn, are you, O Israel. Imagine that. Here we are, a people that came from slavery to free men, and from free men to sons of the living God. Quite a come. Quite a come. It's simple. Sometimes it would be very painful and very hurtful to us to tell. We've tried. Very often we've tried to tell the truth about many things. We tell the truth that the Jews are ready to tell the world that we received at Mount Sinai from God's own appearance and from his mouth the Holy Torah. And we received additional instruction teaching us how to observe it. And the rabbis today, the Orthodox rabbis today, are the carriers of that authority to teach us the tradition handed down by God to Moses and so forth in an unbroken chain until today. Well, amongst this unbroken chain, the links of the unbroken chain, is a link called the Mashiach, the Messiah. And I am a rabbi who has been known, and rightly so, to call the name of Yeshua, Yud, Shin, Vav, Ayin in Hebrew, Yeshua, as Mashiach, the Messiah. Ah, somebody may say, then you must have been influenced by the Christians. No, not at all. I never knew Christians when I grew up. I may have known Christian boys, Christian girls, but I didn't know them as Christians. I knew them as boys and girls who maybe were in the neighborhood or whatever. I knew them as non-Jews, but not in a religious sense as Christians. They knew me in a very religious sense as a Jew. However, where did I learn that this one called Yeshua is Mashiach? Where did I learn that he has a place in Israel that is higher and above all prophets, all kings, and all Kohanim, all priests? And I'll give you the answer. Pashut, simply. I learned it from my rabbis, the rabbis who taught me. I said, wait a minute. How is it that you learned something like that from your rabbis? Simply because they taught it to me. Well, now you can ask me the question, and I hear it coming from the airwaves. If you truly believe in this one Yeshua, isn't he the same one that we Christians call Jesus? And shouldn't you then be a Christian? It's a good question. And I have for you a straightforward answer. You may not like it, but I have an answer. We Jews are never short of answers. I can tell you the truth though, we usually have more questions than answers. The balance sheet is a little tilted in favor of questions over answers. And I'll probably leave you with more questions than answers. But let's go into the answer column. Yes, I learned from my rabbis, and no, I'm not a Christian. And why? Because the personality of the one that the Christians call Jesus is really not the same personality as the one the rabbis teach to their own students, the one who's called Yeshua. Well, in other words, you don't believe in a Messiah. I do believe in a Messiah. And I'll tell you more. You know, my question to those who are not Jewish, what I told you at the beginning, the Gentiles, those who are not part of Jewish people, my question to the Christian of those Gentiles who asks me, why am I not a Christian? I sometimes look at him and I say, if you truly believe in the Messiah that the Jewish people believe in, and the one that the Jewish people originally attempted to teach to the Gentile world, then why aren't you Jewish? Makes sense, doesn't it? In other words, if you're going to believe in a Jewish concept, and a concept which Mashiach is not only a total Jewish concept, but it embraces the entire Torah. That concept, because the Talmud, by the way, that oral law I spoke about, the Talmud teaches us that the world was not created but only for the Mashiach, and that the prophets, all the prophets, prophesied not, but only of the days of the Mashiach. So the concept of Mashiach, Messiah,